Okay, so let's carry on. Let's keep going. So again, we have covered a little bit of HTTP, request and response. Let's have a look now. How does a request and response really looks like? Let's have a look at the, not some coding, but this is actually what a request looks like. Let's see this in action. I'm not going to go each little bit of settings here, but I just want to show you how you can see that in action when you request a web page. So I'm going to go to the browser. In my case here, I'm using Chrome. I really like the tools available on Google Chrome. So I'm just going to press F12, function 12, which will show this area at the bottom. Maybe on yours it will show on the side. On mine here it shows at the bottom. You're going to be able to see here a lot of information about this page that is loaded on the browser. Now, amongst those information you see the network here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to refresh this page so we can actually clear this up. I'm going to clear and I'm going to refresh this. So each and every file that gets loaded in this page, it's shown below here. The very first link, and let me see here why. Oh, actually I didn't type in, sorry. I should have typed. So I'm going to type in www.google.ca. So every file that is loaded with this page is shown here. And we have images, we have, you see, PNG, we have JPEG, we have all kinds of files here, JavaScript files. The very first entry is the original web address that we have typed. Okay, and here on the right hand side, when I select google.ca on the left, I can see the headers of my message. Where the guy was talking about the headers, so we have the request headers and the response headers. So in a request, in a response, we have two elements. We have the body and the header. The body of the message and the header of the message. On both request and response. Here is the request header. When I type in google.ca, I'm making a request to Google server. This request is a get. I'm getting the site, I'm getting that page from Google. These are the header elements, the little pieces of elements of data that is sent together with my requests. We have the method that we're using, which we're just getting the information from the server. We are saying that here is the cookie. Remember, when you hear the word cookie, it's usually referring to a file that is stored in your local system that has a lot of tracking mechanisms. Okay? So again, you see a lot of information that goes together with my request, including the user agent. The user agent is which browser I'm using at that point. And it shows here, I'm using Mozilla 5.0. This is the version of Chrome that I'm using here. You see Chrome 7.6. And so again, a lot of information goes to the server when I do a request. Now, when it comes back, I see the response. This is the header of the response that Google is sending back to me as a client browser, including status 200. What does it mean, status 200? Anyone? Okay, all good. It's working fine. It's most common, hopefully, status codes that we see out there on a website. And again, there are more information here. You see? It shows the content type, showing that this is an HTML, the date, time that this was produced on the server side, and a few other pieces of information that, again, I'm not going to go through each one of those here. But the point is that understand that on each request you have on each transaction you have a request and a response, a request and a response. The request has a body and headers, the response has a body and headers. Now, let me ask you this. See, the visible part of the website that you access, this is the body part of the message that comes back. The header, you don't see the header here. The header is hidden for a regular user. Only if we use this type of tool is that we can see the information that is available inside the header of our response, of the response back. So again, header is hidden information. The body is what we see here on the page, okay? So again, header and body. Header you can see by using what we just used here a second ago. Let me see if I can, yeah. So again, here's the pair. A request header, a response header. Any questions? Again, I'm not going to be asking this much throughout the course, but the coding that we're going to be doing on MVC, you have this on top of your mind. We have requests and we have responses. Requests and response. A lot of, all the time. Okay? Again, this is just a sample message, a sample request, a sample response. I have just shown this. There are certain slides here that I'm just going to brush through them. URI. Well, you hear a lot about URL. What is a URL? URL? When do you see a URL?
Internet address?
Yeah, just an internet address. Just an address. Now, when you see this terminology here, URI, it's similar to a URL. URI is more generic. An email address is a URI. It's a unique identifier. An FTP address is a URI as well. Who knows what FTP is? FTP? Anyone?
File transfer
Protocol. So it has an address as well related to that. But that address is not a URL. It's a URI. So again, URI is just a more generic. Every URL is a URI, but not every URI is a URL. Like an email address is a URI, but not a URL. An FTP address is a URI, but not a URL. This is just describing the schema for an HTTP URI, showing that we have the schema, we have the HTTP or HTTPS, and then we have the host, which is the domain like google.ca, google.com, or whatever the website is. We have a port number. By default, who knows what's the port number of a website? The 80? 80? Yeah, that's the default port number, 80. So because it's default, you don't see that on web address at all, because the browser assumes that if there's no port, it means it's 80. That's the default port. So again, it's just showing the structure of a URL. Okay, so I'm not going to hammer on that. This is detailing the format of a message. Again, I'm not going to go into too many details here. Just keep in mind that, as I mentioned, on every message you have the header and you have the message body. You have the body and the header. Header is hidden, body is what you see on the web page, on the website. Okay? Okay. The different verbs. Those are the different methods. You see, on that message that I just shown you, on the request header, we have the method here. See, we have a get. A get is when we are bringing information from the server to the client. It's one of the verbs. It's one of the actions there. It's the first one. It's one of the most popular ones. When we want to get information, read-only information, we use a get. When we want to submit information to the server, we use a post. We're going to see that. You're going to be using that quite a lot, get and post, on your coding when you're doing your MVC projects. An example when you use a post, you just use that quite a lot today. When you're filling out a form, you click the submit button. The form information that you just fill out, it goes back to the server. So we are, at that point, we are not doing a get there. We are doing a post because we are posting data back to the server. You use post when data changes. You use get when you get information that is read-only. Again, this will become more clear as we go along, but keep that in mind. Use post to change information, to send information. Use get just to receive information, okay? You'll never change information with a get. Get is not a secure way to send information to the server, okay? And you see a lot of more verbs, a lot of more methods, but we're not going to be touching them. They are usually very specific. They have a very unique use case. Again, we're going to be focused on gets and posts. Let's have a look at this video here.
Is an acronym for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, literally a protocol used to transfer hypertext, which begs two questions. What is a protocol, and what is hypertext? In this context, a protocol is a system of rules that allow communication of information between different entities, like computers. Hypertext is a somewhat outdated word for text that is displayed on a computer screen that contains hyperlinks to other text, so web documents. So, the Hypertext Transfer Protocol is the set of rules servers and browsers use to transfer web documents back and forth, which is why every URL you type into a web browser starts with HTTP. That's a nice definition, but it doesn't tell us much about the nature of HTTP, what it is. So let's dig in a bit deeper. One of the core principles of HTTP is that it is plain language and human readable. When you see an HTTP request, response, or message, you can read it out loud and make sense of it, even if you don't necessarily know how the technology works. As an example, all HTTP request methods use simple human language verbs: get, post, put, delete, and so on. You don't need to know anything about computers or computer networks to get what I need. Another principle is that HTTP is a stateless protocol. That means each individual request sent over the protocol is unique, and no request is connected to another request. Put it in another way, HTTP has no memory of previous requests. Go to a web page with a photo gallery, and it'll show you the first picture. Go reload your browser or type in the URL again and you get the first picture again because HTTP has no memory of you making that first request. This statelessness ensures users don't get trapped in or placed in the middle of sequences of content, but it also means they can't walk their way through sequences because the requests are not connected. To fix this, HTTP allows sessions, stored states shared between the browser and the server. If a visitor is flipping their way through a photo gallery, the browser and server can exchange information about where the visitor is in the sequence by passing information back and forth in the form of cookies. Reload the page, and the browser sends along a cookie to the server saying, hey, last time we spoke, we were looking at the third picture. Start there. This means while HTTP is stateless, it is not sessionless. That passing of cookies that allows HTTP to preserve sessions is made possible by the extensibility of HTTP. When requests and responses are sent back and forth over HTTP, we can include HTTP headers with additional information. These headers can carry information about everything from what type of client sent the requests, the server configuration, and the time and date of the response, to how and for how long the client should store the data, what format the data is in, those cookies used to track sessions, and so on. Which brings us to the last basic principle. HTTP works based on request-response pairs. Every action performed over HTTP starts with a request using one of the HTTP methods and ends with a response containing an HTTP status code saying what happened to the request, along with the data like headers and content.
Awesome. Okay. So some of that I had already mentioned, but it's always good to see other perspectives, and each person that explains in a slightly different way, maybe a more clear way. Just want to mention a few of the status codes. Again, as I shown before, here's a status code of our example. We have the response. See, status 200 means that it's okay. We have a bunch of other status. For instance, we have the 100 status, informational message. To be honest, I've never seen that in action before. 100, so never seen that. But of course, 200, we just saw one, the okay, and there are a few variations of successful messages with different numbers, all related to 200, and they have more specific success cases. Now, a very popular one as well is the 300 type of message, which are redirections. What is a redirection? Well, a page can move from a certain location to a different location. Maybe the page has been renamed. Maybe it moved from one folder to another one. So with a 301 redirect, what we can do is that we can say, hey, this file used to be here, now it's there. So so you can send a 301 redirect to give information of what is the new location of that file, of that address, okay? So that's what the redirection means. You can either move something permanently to a new location with a 301, or you can use, I think it's a 302, it's not listed here, which a 302 is a temporary move. Oh, so you have a permanent, again, 301 redirect is very common when a website gets rebuilt. If a website is running for years, it has a lot of what we call Google juice. It has a lot of credibility with Google. So a lot of the pages are already indexed there. If you don't want to lose that juice, that search juice, you do 301 redirects to a new location, to a new page name. It happens when you move to different platforms, or let's say from PHP to .NET, and you rename the pages. So we have status codes as 300 line. We also have the 400, which is a client error. Maybe you have requested a file that doesn't exist, a path that doesn't exist, so that you get a bad request. Maybe you request a resource, a page that you are not authorized to access, so you get an unauthorized request. And again, there are a few other ones. 403, you are forbidden to access that resource. Okay. And then we have the 500 types of errors there, which are server-side errors. You have a problem with the application in the server. It might be that your code failed and you didn't handle that problem nicely, gracefully, and the user will get back 500 error. Let's do this exercise here. There we're going to have a few questions, about four questions, I think 2 sets of questions. It's about what we have covered here so far and a few other things. Let's have a look at that. I'm just going to open, this is a Nearpod quiz. I'm going to activate that. So again, let's go to nearpod.com, and this is the code. I'll give you a few minutes to get it going. So again, nearpod.com, and then the code is ELMZU. Yep, ELMZU. I'll give you 3 minutes here. I'm gonna take attendance while you do that, okay? So just see if you hear your name. So Tanvi, Iran, January, Wei Young, Matthew, Zidane, Simon, Yen Hao, Jordan, Thiago, Jianhui, Kango, Tanai, oh, Tanai, Chong, Dayon, Junyong, Min Young, Yoon Zeop, Harsh Kumar, Sergio,
Yes.
Duke Tang, Jane, Ashlyn, okay. Good, okay. Sergio,
Yes, sir.
yep, okay. Kulite, did I pronounce correct? Irvin, Akil, okay. Milanpreet, Senthura, Tuan, Wipan, Ipan, sorry, Tu Ting, Lipeng, okay, so let's have a look at the questions here. Oops, not that. Okay, so just three questions. Okay, the following are all parts of HTTP messages except start line, footer. Actually, I skipped a little bit. I didn't go in details of that particular slide. We have header, okay? And then we have body. So each message has a header and has a body. The header has a start line. So start line is part of the header. Footer, there's no such a thing as footer, okay? So it is the footer. What is the name of the transport protocol used by HTTP? TCP. So again, think of that analogy. TCP is the truck, HTTP is the package that goes inside the truck, is the load of the truck. What are the two most common HTTP methods? Get and post. The other ones are useful, but they are not as popular as get and post. Okay? There's another set of questions. I'm going to quickly move forward to that. Okay, that's good. So we have a few, quite a good number there. So let's go to this other set. I'm just going to give 2 minutes this time. Let's have a look at that. Okay, so let's have a look at the 4 questions here. Which of the following is a characteristic of HTTP? Let's go one by one here. Stateless. It does not keep state between different message exchanges. That's good. It does not keep. It can, the way web development handles that is with cookies and sessions on the server, but cookies and sessions, they are not, cookies are carried through HTTP, but they are not part of HTTP. It's just the load that goes inside. So again, stateless, yes. Request response pair, it is how communication between a host and a client occurs. Is that right or wrong? That's good. Status codes, a set of codes, as we have seen, that identify the type of response provided by the server. The good one is, the OK is D. That's right. I'm asking about the status code, which is what is the number of the OK status code? 200. Okay, so all of them are correct. Is the HTTP request method or action used to send data from the client to the server? Which one? Post. Again, if I need to change data, I use a post action. What is the most common HTTP status code? Well, we have been talking about that. It is 200. Okay. And last but not least, what is the status code for errors? 500? Both of them? Yeah, both of them. 400 is client-side errors, 500 is server-side errors, okay? So both of them. Okay, perfect. Okay, that's good. Let's have a look here. Okay. This is just a quick reference in case you want to get more details, more information about HTTP. Again, it's good to have the knowledge of HTTP, but we're not going to be honest, requiring to know all the details about HTTP. Just the overview. In summary, let's remember the diagram. A client sends an HTTP request to the server. We have a request. The web server receives the request. The server does something, does some code, some processing. That's what we're going to be doing in our codes. And returns, it runs an application to process the request, and serves back an HTTP response. It gives back some HTML with a response code. That's the output. That goes back to the browser. And then the client receives the response and shows something. Now, here, before we move on, we are just talking about clients that are web clients, web-based clients, browser clients. But there are other types of clients. Who can tell me other types of clients that also receive information from requests? And there are many other types of clients. Let's think about one or two. Browser is the obvious one, the one that we're going to be doing quite a lot of work here. But what other things receive messages from the web? Mobile applications, that's right, mobile applications. What else? Let's think about, who knows what IoT means? IoT, what is IoT?
Internet of Things.
Internet of Things. So we have a lot of connected devices right now. This watch receives data from the web. So again, clients, yes, the obvious client are the browsers, but there are many other types of clients. Google Home is another client. The different assistive devices that we may have. Again, a lot of connected devices out there. And when you go to the market, you're going to be coding for those stuff as well, for those things as well. Okay. All good. Okay. Great. What else we have here? Okay, so we come HTTP. Okay. So in our last stretch here of the night, we're going to be just reviewing a few of the concepts that at this point, they are requirements for this course. We're just going to brush through a few of them. This will not be a replacement for knowing HTML, JavaScript, or CSS. I'm just going to brush through this, okay? Just walk through a few of them to give a bit of an overview. A recap for those of you that are already very familiar with that. Maybe some of you will think that this is too basic. It might be too basic, but again, the idea of today is to do a general recap as well, so we can get to new content from next week. Actually, before next week, you're gonna have an assignment, not an assignment, but a bonus to take home. But more about that a little bit later. Okay, web application development. Let's go through a bit of introduction here. Some of the slides here, there are about 50 slides here. I'm not going to go through each one of them in depth. You're going to see a bit of history of World Wide Web, a few of the high-level aspects of web development, including what is a well-formed page, web page. So originally, the web was created to be able to locate information, to be able to locate files. So you have the, HTML. Who knows what HTML stands for? Hypertext. So again, as you see in one of the videos, hypertext is a bit of an outdated terminology because we have a lot more than just links in our pages. But originally, it was supposed to be a collection of links to documents. But then, very quickly, when well, I'm not gonna be able to say that. A commercial usage of the web came to place. Very quickly, the websites needed to be engaging, to have a visual appealing, okay? So that's where things like CSS comes to place. But after that, the websites started to require to be dynamic as well, to have functionality as well. And that's why one of the things, why JavaScript became so popular, because it was, all of a sudden we were able to make the pages behave like an application, behave like a desktop application, okay? Again, but as everything, JavaScript has a few disadvantages. It has some limitations. It does not run on the client or the server side, even though at this point in time, JavaScript runs everywhere. I mean, JavaScript is one of the most popular languages out there. It can run on the server. Of course, it can run in the client side with a whole bunch of frameworks that make things a lot easier to code with JavaScript, like Angular, jQuery, very powerful frameworks. Okay, so we have HTML, we have CSS to make it look pretty, we have JavaScript to make it function, to have a more dynamic interaction with the users, but then we also have the server-side coding that goes together with all of that. So in our days, do you know what it means to be a full stack developer? Who knows what is that? Front end to back end. You know how to code, you know how to do JavaScript, how to use front end frameworks like jQuery, Angular, Bootstrap, but you also know how to code the back end. Whatever language that might be. It might be PHP, it might be C#, it might be whatever framework you might be using in the server side, like Ruby or any other, Java as well. But in our case here, we're going to be discussing about ASP.NET Core, not ASP.NET, the traditional ASP.NET. Back in 2002, Microsoft has launched ASP.NET, but from 2002 up to now, it has evolved. And today, what we have is we have the core, which got rid of a bunch of, let's put it this way, not very useful features of the traditional ASP.NET. Let me tell you this, back in 2002, what Microsoft did for the web was to build a tool, a platform, a framework that could allow traditional developers to move from desktop coding to web coding without too much effort. However, after years using that, it was very successful, but there are a lot of drawbacks on that technology. That's the reason why now we use, Microsoft has moved on to .NET Core, which is a much slim framework in technology, as compared to the traditional ASP.NET. Okay. Again, some history there. I'm not gonna get into that. I mentioned a little bit about this. some of that terminology we have seen before. You know, URL, it's about the website address. URI, URLs are, all URLs are URIs, but not all URIs are URLs. You have the definitions here. So of course, you have website, web browser. I'm not gonna hammer on those kinds of things. What I'll keep hammering are those two things: requests and responses. You know, we have client computers, we have server computers, client requests, server sends a response. Okay, again, we have seen this. We'll be using this. Actually, have a closer look at this diagram because you're going to be reproducing that in the last 20 minutes of our class on Microsoft, on Word itself. You know, just roughly what this diagram shows. You're going to reproduce that on your own. And also, as we go through, you know, the client aspect, the server aspect, the web application aspect, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, make some notes as we go along, as we discuss this a little bit more in the next half an hour, so you can fill out your bonus at the end of the day today. So again, just going back to this, we have request, web server response. Here's just highlighting in the diagram the request and response, the server on the server side, and the different browsers that are available. I would recommend that we stick to Google Chrome because of it's very developer friendly. So I highly recommend that we stick with that one. On the client side, of course, that's the browsers, and we have discussed a few other types of clients that might be consuming the web request and response. The organization responsible to determine and define the standards of web communication in general is the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium. It's an organization composed by multiple companies, and that's how the standards of the web come about. Okay. Who knows what open source is, what open source means? Well, aside from reading here the definition. Give me an example of something that is open source. What is that? Python. Yeah. You mentioned something there? No? Chromium? It's the
program that's provided by Chrome.
Mm-hmm. Actually, .NET, the core framework, is open source as well. See, Microsoft a few years ago decided to open source quite a few things from their proprietary stack. So .NET, you can actually download the entire code of .NET itself, you know. Okay, so more about HTTP. We have covered some of that. What is a host computer? A host computer is the host server, the server that when we do a request, for instance, for centennialcollege.ca, that's the server. There will be a host server that will respond to that, which, again, we have a domain name that will link to that server. Again, more of the HTTP, domain identifier. Here is just breaking down a URL. We have the protocol, HTTP. What is the most, actually, you don't see this that much anymore. What is it that you see usually in the browsers, in the websites, instead of HTTP? It's just an extra letter there.
Yes.
HTTPS, which are secure web addresses, secure pages. So again, plain and simple HTTP, we're going to be coding with plain and simple HTTP, but again, on the web now, it's really standard to have HTTPS. And then we have the domain name. We have the top level domain, which is .com, .whatever. And this is a bit outdated here. I mean, you no longer have, this no longer means just directory. It may, as you're gonna see in MVC, we don't have files to point to like this. If we go to this folder, you're gonna see a file called index.html. In MVC, it works in a different way. We're gonna have controllers and actions. More about that next class that you're gonna get to that one. Again, more of the same. This is a kind of a recap of HTTP in general. As I said, TCP, you will hear the term TCP or TCP/IP. Again, this is the other comparison I like to use is TCP is the pipe, and HTTP or HTTPS is the water flowing through the pipe. Okay, it's the actual content flowing through the pipe. Okay. Okay. Again, just hammering a few of the same concepts. We have client, which has the front end, and we have the server, which is the back end, processing calculations, accessing databases. Okay, again, client server, the same diagram there. Okay, so I want to stick around with that one for a second. I don't know which section was that, but someone asked me the question if you're going to be using a graphical editor for this course, like Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, or something like that. Again, this is a course about programming, about coding. This is not a design course. But there are different components to a web application, to a website. You have web page design, which is the creative side of the visuals of a website, usually using an application like Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator. Then we have the web page authoring. This refers to the HTML that needs to be built to put together that website. So you design, you build the HTML of that website, but then you do the website programming. You do the server-side programming. And that's where we're going to be focusing this course on. That's the web development, web application development. Okay, so just want to mention a few things about HTML. Again, most likely not new to some of you. Hopefully not new to any one of you, but just a brush through of the different aspects of HTML. So in the next few minutes, I'll be talking a little bit about HTML, a little bit about CSS, and a little bit about JavaScript as well, in Visual Studio. So in a few slides, I'm just going to go through quickly because they are pretty basic. But again, HTML, hypertext markup, it's the language used to build up the pages. We're going to be using quite a lot of HTML, okay? So if you are not familiar with, or if you don't recall certain aspects of HTML, I'll have a resource at the end of this segment that talks about HTML. It's a crash course on HTML if you need to have that, okay? Let's see here. Okay. So again, HTML is one of the aspects of the response back to the clients. We use tags on HTML to signify different types of blocks in our code: paragraphs, headers, body, line breaks. We use a closing tag with this / as a way to identify that a tag is getting closed. Again, basic syntax of HTML, we have elements. Elements have a pair of the element name and the element value. Okay, so let's jump quickly here to a few examples. So a few examples of tags of HTML. Center is no longer used. It's it's kind of deprecated, so it's no longer a use, but again, the other ones are very useful. Okay, let's have a look at this quick video here, just to brush through a few aspects of HTML.
In this video, you're going to learn about using HTML to add structure to your web pages. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language and is found on all websites across the internet. There are a bunch of different HTML structures you can use on your web page, including headers, lists, paragraphs, links, and images. Let's take a look at how to create a paragraph in HTML. The sentence we wrote for our web page would look better if it was distinctly different from the title of the web page. To separate the two, you need to let the computer know that all of this text is a part of a paragraph and not the title. You can do this by creating a paragraph element. Most elements are made up of three main parts: an opening tag, the contents to be displayed, and a closing tag. Tags are a part of HTML language, and they signal to the computer the start and end of an element. In this case, it's paragraph. Tags let the computer know what we want to display on the screen and what we don't want to display. That's why tags include special characters like the less than and greater than to distinguish from the content. Paragraphs are just one type of structure you can use in a web page. Soon you'll learn about a number of other structures that will give you even more power to customize your website.
Yeah, just so, again, for some of you, this will not be new, but I wanted to make sure that we mention a few things about HTML. Let's go for 5 minutes, and once we get back, we will wrap things up. Okay, so let's carry on here. So just a few more things about HTML. Again, continue the basic syntax of HTML. There is a root element that contains all the elements in the document, and that's the HTML element. And then we have a header. Inside of a header element, we have titles. So again, let's not confuse this head here, tag, with the header of the message. You know, header of the message is the hidden information from the message, the response back from the server. This head is a head tag in the page that is inside of the body of the message. Okay. Again, in the message has the body of the message has a head and has a body element as well, a HTML body element that contains the body of the HTML. The process of the browser receiving a response from the server and showing that response as a web page is called parsing or rendering. It's rendering, it's displaying the images, the HTML, you know, in the screen. Again, HTML tags, they have attributes, and attributes, it's used with the following syntax. We have attribute name equals to a value, like class equals to whatever class that might be. Okay. Again, P, we have the P element, which is the paragraph. We have BR, which is a line break tag. Again, HTML is a plain text. It's plain text, so you can edit HTML on any text editor like notepads, WordPads, but you're going to be using what? What's our editor? What's our editor? Visual Studio. So again, we're going to be using Visual Studio as our IDE. We're going to get to that in a second here. And last but not least, there is something called a well-formed document. A well-formed document, a well-formed HTML document has some rules that we must obey to, we must follow, like having a doc type declaration, like having the HTML tag, the head tag, the body tag. Okay, so then we can create a well-formed document. If by any chance you are not familiar with HTML and you need a recap or a refresher, this video here is a 1 hour long and it covers the basics for you. If you feel like you are not following what we are doing in class and you are having difficulties about the HTML part, again, you can use this video here. This presentation is available on Centennial as a PDF, and the links in the PDF, they are clickable. So if you click there, in this button here, it will go to a YouTube video that is an hour long, which is a HTML crash course for absolute beginners. Okay? Let's have a look at how you are doing with HTML. Let's see if we only have experts here or if we need a little bit of training here. Let's have a look at this next quiz. Okay, live session here. We have, I think, 8 questions. Let's do them and let's see how we're doing HTML-wise. So I think it's 8 questions. Let's see if we can do this in 3 minutes. Let's have a look there. Nearpod, the code is NUJMH. As you go through the questions, write 1 or 2 points about HTML, what you'd like to put in your summary during the bonus time, okay? Okay, so let's have a look together at this one here. let's see, actually, let me have a quick look at how we did here, okay? Great, so we have all HTML specialists here, that's great. Okay, so who is making the web standards? We have seen that quickly there. Who's that one? C, the World Wide Web Consortium. Choose the correct HTML element for the largest heading. Which one is that one? H1. Okay, so again, we have H1 down to H6. Each one is smaller than the previous one. We don't have heading, we don't have, head is the regular head that we have in the HTML. So it's not about a title. So that's H1, the biggest one. What is the correct HTML element for inserting a line break? BR. What is B? Bold. Okay. Great, great. And we don't have these ones. What is the correct HTML for adding a background color? So, which one? C, B, C. There is, body has a background property, but it's not called BG. So, body style equals to, and what is this? What is this part here? It's CSS. More specifically, what kind of, we have three types of CSS. We have inline CSS, we have inside the file blocks of CSS, and we have external CSS. This is a case of an inline CSS, which, to be quite honest, should not be used that much. Ideally, this should be a class, and that the definition of that class should be in an external file, so it can be cached. More of that as we go along, but yeah, that's the one. Okay, so choose the correct HTML element to define emphasized text. So, which one? Let me ask you this. Is there such a thing as italic tag? No such a thing. Is there an EM? That's emphasized text. However, we also have I. I is italic. I mean, yes, we can still use that. I would rather have italic being the style, the CSS style of an element. But in this case here, emphasized text is really the EM, and there's no emphasize. 6. What is the correct HTML for creating a hyperlink? A. So href, not URL. Okay, great. So that's the one. Number 7 here. Which character is used to indicate the an end tag? C is the one. And how can you open a link in a new tab or browser window? Which one? C? B? Actually, B. New, I mean, there is a new, but it's actually underscore new. Okay? So, a minor detail there. Okay, and that's it. So that's HTML. Let's keep moving forward here. So again, I think that we are good. If you have any questions about HTML, again, you can reach out or go through that tutorial, that crash course 1 hour. Again, no intention for this to be a CSS course. I just want to brush through a few concepts. Cascading style sheets. This is what CSS stands for. You can have, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, you can have inline CSS, you can have a block of CSS in your HTML codes, or you can have CSS as an external file. What is the advantage of having CSS as an external file? Who can give me the one major advantage? What is the advantage of having CSS as an external file? As a .css file and not inside of the HTML, not inline. What is the advantage? Come on. We have HTML specialists, but we don't have CSS specialists. Any guess? A media query. In which sense? I mean, unpack what you're trying to describe there.
Just HTML keyword or media for the input screen size.
Got it. But could you have that inside of the HTML as well, in a style block?
I don't know. I never tried.
You could. So good attempt there, but that's not why you. Not only because of that. What else? Come on. That's a good one. It's easier to use. It's cleaner. That's a good one. It's good from a development standpoint, from a developer standpoint. However, what about performance? From a performance standpoint, is there any benefit of having the style sheet as a file, not inside the HTML, from a performance standpoint? Come on, let's put our thinking head. I know that it's late, almost 10 o'clock, but let's see what we have left. Okay, so I'll give a clue. What is cache? Not money. I'm not talking about money. Okay. What is caching as it relates to websites? What is cache? Memory. Okay, let's keep going. Now, 1 + 1 = 2. So again, I'm talking about CSS, I'm talking about cache. Come on, make the connection. Memory, I heard that. I heard that just a second ago. What else? I heard performance as well. I said, so memory, performance, cache. Again, cache is a memory, is a local memory. When you access a website, all the files that came back, including CSS, including images, they get cached. What does it mean to get cached? It gets saved locally. It gets saved locally in the browser's cache. Then, your next request to the site, let's say you are on centennialcollege.ca. You access it first time. A bunch of files get downloaded, including the CSS file. Now you start clicking around. You go to another page, you go to another page. Those pages, let's say that they share the same CSS file. So the first request, the first time that you visit the site, the files came locally. The next time that you go to other pages, if they use the same CSS, the CSS is already local. So it doesn't have to request that back again because it's already cached. It's already saved locally. So it saves that round trip from loading that CSS again and again and again on each and every request because it gets cached. It gets stored locally. It doesn't need to retrieve that any longer. If the CSS is inside the HTML, every time you do a request, that data comes back all the time. It's not necessary if you put that in a separate file. Okay? Anyway, at least you got something new today. Let's have a look at this quick video here.
As you've been building your websites, you learned to use HTML to give it structure. You've learned to define headings, lists, paragraphs, and images to make your website start to look the way you want. But usually just giving a website structure isn't enough. You want to give it style to fully bring the content to life. The same website about fitness could have a sleek and simple style or a quirky and eclectic style, and each would feel different to your user. Web developers can control the style of a web page using a language called CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. CSS allows a web developer to define a specific set of style rules to apply to HTML elements on the page. Let's take a look at how to use CSS to create style rules for a simple web page about fitness. First, we'll write the CSS to turn all the paragraph text purple, to indicate that we want to apply a set of rules to all the paragraph elements. We write the name of the tag P, followed by an open, and then a closed curly brace. We refer to the P here as the selector. The selector indicates the type of elements the style rule will apply to. Next, we need to indicate what about the paragraphs we'd like to change. In this case, we want to change the color of the paragraph text. This part of the rule is called a property. And color is just one of the many properties we can change about a paragraph. A property is followed by a colon. Finally, we need to specify the value we want for that property. To make the paragraph purple, let's add the word purple after the property. And finally, add a semicolon to indicate the end of the style rule. The CSS that we just wrote is called a rule set, because like the name implies, it's a set of rules to specify a style for the selected element. We can add multiple property value pairs to the same selector to further control the style of our web page's paragraph elements. If we want these paragraphs to be purple and large, we can add the font size property to control the text size. Then specify a number value to set how large the font will be. CSS allows for all sorts of style rules: fonts, positioning, size, and colors. The more style rules you learn, the more you can make your web page tell the story you want.
Awesome. Okay. So let's see here. So again, CSS, and yet another component of our diagram, as I keep referring to. We have seen this. As I mentioned, we have 3 locations for CSS: inline, internal styles we use in the style tag inside the HTML, and external style sheets files, which is what I was talking about a second ago. Again, if CSS is a problem for you, you have an hour and something here with this video. You can give it a try. You can see how that one goes. Let's have a look at, hopefully you still have that one open, because I'll just move forwards and we can take 2 minutes there to practice a little bit of this one here. So let's see. Yeah, so I'm going to give just about 4 minutes here so we can get this one done. Actually, let's do with 3 minutes here. So again, a few questions about CSS. Let's have a look. Let's practice this a little bit and just check our knowledge about CSS. Did I miss anyone's name in the attendance by any chance? I mean, anyone was not called in the attendance? Okay. Okay, so let's do this together. Okay, so what is the correct HTML for referring to an external style sheet? Which one? The first one? Yeah, what is the problem with D? The property, the attribute is not URL, it's the attribute is href. Okay, so that's the one. Where in an HTML document is the correct place to refer to an external style sheet? Which part of the HTML? At the end of the document? In the head section? In the footer, in the body section, or the footer section? B? Any other opinions? So the head section is really where you should be referring to external HTML, external style sheets. It doesn't mean that you cannot do that inside the body. It will work inside the body. Actually, from a syntax standpoint, you can put inside the body, but the correct location is really in the head section. Which HTML tag is used to define an internal style sheet? An internal style sheet is a style sheet that is defined inside the HTML. So it's not external, it's inside the HTML. Which tag is that one? B, it's a style tag. Script used to define JavaScripts. Yep. Which HTML attribute is used to define inline styles? Style. So again, inline style is a style that is defined inside the tag. It's an attribute called style. Which is the correct CSS syntax? Which of them? B? D as, okay, D, yeah, that's fine. So it's defining the color of the fonts inside the body. The other ones, the syntax are incorrect. How do you insert a comment in a CSS file? B as ball, C. D. D is the one. Okay? I don't know if there is another way, because some languages, they have multiple ways to put comments. I don't think there is another way. Anyone knows if there is another way? Because I know for sure that D is correct, but is there any other way? I don't think so.
Should be the same in all languages.
Yeah. How do you add the background color for all H1 elements? B as Bob. What is A here? What does it mean, A?
The class name is all.
Yeah, so it means that this would only be applied to H1 tags where the class has been defined as all. And last one here, which CSS property controls the text size? Font size. Okay. Awesome. How did we do here? Okay. Again, great. HTML and CSS are not problems for us. That's great. Okay, so I want to skip ahead a little bit here. I'm not going to go through JavaScript here, to be honest, because we're going to be using very little of JavaScript throughout the course. So again, it's yet another component, but we're going to be referring to jQuery a little bit, not too much. So I'm not going to talk too much here. There's not much here, to be quite honest, other than basic definition. ASP.NET Core, this is where our course will focus from next class on. And it's a server-side scripting. Again, that's what this entire course will be about. That's the web application. That's what we're going to be focusing on. Okay, we're going to be using a lot of object-oriented programming there. It's the basic .NET. Actually, in this course, we're going to be using .NET Core, not so much, not .NET Framework. Okay, the core. I mean, .NET Framework, yes, it's yet another, it's the older version of ASP.NET, but of .NET Framework, but here we're going to be using .NET Core. Client-side, server-side, I'm going to jump. Okay, I want you just to stick for a few seconds here. Visual Studio, that's our IDE, our integrated development environment. Just want to highlight this, where if you are using the computers in class available by Centennial, Visual Studio will be installed there already. If you are using your own laptop and you want to install Visual Studio, you can get that by following this document. And I'm going to open Centennial there. I'm going to go to the contents. I'm going to go to General. And here, you can find download instructions on how to get Visual Studio 2017. You have to access this URL, you have to log in with your student information, and you're going to be able to download Visual Studio 2017 from here. In addition to that, have a look at the second link here to make sure that you also install LocalDB. LocalDB is a simple version of SQL Server available on Visual Studio. Have a look at that link. It will show you what you have to check to make sure that LocalDB is installed together with your Visual Studio. Ederson, why are we not using Visual Studio 2019? Well, because for the sake of this course, the content is very much the same. And the book is also based on Visual Studio 2017. So again, what you're going to be applying on 2017 is directly translated to 2019, to Visual Studio 2019. Okay? So yeah, so I wanted to highlight that. What else here? Yeah, this is just, yeah, that's okay. That's good. Okay, so a few things before we wrap up with our bonus. I just want to highlight that under week 1, there's already a bonus 2 available here. Not for now, but this is for next. This is from now until the beginning of next class. What you're going to do is this. There are 6 videos here on this playlist. This is the first exercise that you're going to be practicing about MVC. I'm asking you to do video 1, 2, and 3 at home. Total time of those 3 videos is half an hour. You're going to need 1 hour to do all 3 of them at home because you're going to be pausing, you're going to be coming back. But for next class, if you want bonus number 2, you're going to do 1, 2, and 3, and you're going to write 3 questions about those 3 videos. 3 things that maybe they're not very clear after you watch the videos. Maybe you have questions, you have specific questions. Maybe you just think that, this concept here is a bit unclear. So you're going to write 3 questions. Here's the thing. With this course, every single class, you're going to have a follow-up at home that has to be done before the next class. And here's the thing as well. Those 3 videos, I will not be covering them in class anymore. That's your to-do for home, not only for the bonus, but for the segment of the class, the continuation of the class. So again, you're going to be required to do those 3 exercises. Well, it's a continuation, really. It's the same exercise, but part 1, 2, and 3. Again, do on your own from now until next class until 6:30 in a week. You should have uploaded your 3 questions. Just put together a Word document, upload them to bonus 2, and that will be your second bonus. But again, don't think about this just for the sake of the bonus. This is part of how we're going to be working together. I'm not going to be here all the time in front lecturing you for 4 hours. This is not my goal here. We have to work in a collaborative way. So as part of that, you're going to be required to have at least half an hour to an hour of homework, of working alone by yourself at home on your own time for the following class. Okay, so again, not the 6 videos, but at least the first 3. Any questions about that? I like to repeat myself quite a lot, and sometimes I overdo it. So, questions? Okay, so to wrap things up, you have 15 minutes. Upload kind of a summary of what we have gone through. Draw this diagram that I hammered so much here. I'm going to actually open it up. I'm going to keep it open here. Yeah, draw this diagram on your own. Open Word, Microsoft Word. Just draw it with arrows and boxes, the way you see fit, but reproduce this diagram. And below it, get the main elements, write them down, and say, hey, this is what I got from request. This is what I got about a response. This is what I got about client. This is what I got about server. 1 line, 2 lines the most. But just to recap what we have gone through with this diagram. Upload it by 10:30, and you have your first 1% bonus there on Centennial. On Centennial, you can upload that to assessments, assignments. You're going to see bonus 1 and bonus 2 there. Upload bonus 1 until 10:30 today. And again, bonus 2, it's due by 6:30 next class. Any questions? Is that clear? I mean, again, ask. Here's the deadline of those. Once you are done with bonus 1, you can just leave for the day. We are done for the day. The 3-question exercise for next week, if you come to class and you have not done that, you're going to have to do that in class by yourself while we move forward. So again, it's important to do that 1, 2, 3 videos, the 3 videos at home. Yes, sure. By the way, this is also available as a PDF on Centennial, okay? Just so you know, it's right here. So under week 1, here are the 2, week 1 and week 1. Yeah, sure. Not exactly, just a rough, I mean, you don't need to reproduce this exactly like this. Just a rough draft of this would be enough.